You don't notice when you're being pushed aside. Not at first. It happens in silences. In the "don't worry, we've got it" smiles. In the way decisions are made while you're still in the room, but not really in them. I held on to love, even when it left bruises I couldn't name, and I believed her. I really believed her. The dress hung in my closet like a promise I'd made to myself. Navy blue with tiny silver beads scattered across the bodice knot. Too flashy, not too plain. Perfect for the mother of the bride who wanted to look elegant without stealing any thunder. I'd spent 3 weeks finding it, driving to 4 different department stores until I found something that felt right. "Mom, you're going to love the venue," Madison had said when she called me 2 months ago. Her voice carried that particular brightness she used when she was excited about something. "It's this gorgeous garden space downtown. Very intimate, I remember smiling into the phone, already picturing myself there. "How many people are you thinking?" "Oh, not too many. Maybe 60. We want it to feel personal, you know?" Personal. I liked that word. It suggested I'd matter, that my presence would be felt and appreciated. It suggested that after 34 years of being Madison's mother, I'd earned a place at the table when she started her new life. The morning before the wedding, I laid the dress out on my bed and studied it in the natural light streaming through my bedroom window. The beads caught the sun and threw tiny rainbows across the white comforter. I'd bought new shoes, too low heels, because I'd learned my lesson about trying to look taller than I was, in a small clutch that matched perfectly. My phone buzzed against the nightstand. "Madison." "Hey, sweetie," I answered, already smiling. "I was just looking at my dress." "I think you're going to, Mom." "Hi." Her voice sounded different, strained. "I'm actually calling because there's been a little mix-up with the seating arrangements." I sat down on the edge of the bed, still holding the dress against my chest. "What kind of mix-up?" "Well, the venue coordinator apparently miscounted, and we're a few chairs short. David's family is larger than we thought, and his grandmother is flying in from Phoenix and Madison." Slow down. Something cold was spreading through my stomach. "What are you saying exactly?" "I'm saying we might need to adjust some things. But don't worry, we've got it handled." There it was. "Don't worry, we've got it." The phrase that had become the soundtrack to my relationship with my children over the past few years. Don't worry about Christmas dinner. We've got it. Don't worry about Peter's rent. We've got it. Don't worry about helping with the wedding planning. We've got it. Adjust how? I asked. "We're looking into live streaming options. That way everyone can still be part of the celebration, even if they can't physically be there." The dress suddenly felt heavier in my hands. "Are you uninviting me to your wedding?" "No. God, no, Mom. You're being dramatic. We're just exploring options to make sure everyone feels included." Everyone. As if I were part of some anonymous group instead of the woman who'd raised her, who'd co-signed her student loans, who'd hosted David's parents for dinner 6 times in the past year to make sure they felt welcomed into our family. "Madison, I bought a dress, I know, and I'm sure it's beautiful. Look, let me call you back later, okay? David and I need to figure out the logistics." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there for a long moment, holding my phone and staring at the dress. Then I called my sister Diane. "Eleanor, you sound upset. Madison might be live streaming her wedding." "What do you mean, live streaming?" "I mean, she's running out of chairs, and apparently I'm not essential enough to warrant an actual seat." Diane was quiet for a moment. My older sister had never been one to sugarcoat things, which was exactly what I needed, right? "Now, did she actually say you couldn't come?" "She said they were exploring options. She said they wanted everyone to feel included. Everyone. That's what she said." "Eleanor, you're not everyone. You're her mother." I looked at the dress. Again, at the careful way I'd arranged it on the bed. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe she really is just trying to figure out the logistics. Or maybe she's been planning this for a while and just now worked up the nerve to tell you. The thought hit me like a physical blow. "Why would you say that?" "Because I've watched this pattern for years, Eleanor. They take and take and take. And then when it comes time to give back even just basic respect, suddenly there's a mix-up." I wanted to argue with her, to defend Madison, but something in my chest felt hollow. She wouldn't do that to me, wouldn't she? When was the last time she called you just to talk? When was the last time she asked how you were doing? I tried to remember. Madison called when she needed something, advice about work, help with a bill, someone to watch her cat when she went out of town, but just to talk, just to check in. "She's busy," I said weakly. "We're all busy, Eleanor, but we make time for the people who matter to us." After I hung up with Diane, I sat in my bedroom for another hour, just looking at the dress. I thought about the past year of wedding planning, how I'd offered to help with flowers and been told they had it covered, how I'd suggested a brunch the morning after the wedding and been told they already had plans, How every conversation about the wedding had felt like I was intruding on something private, even though it was my daughter getting married. My phone buzzed again. A text from Madison, *, so sorry about the mix-up. We'll call tomorrow to explain everything. Love you, mix-up. As if my exclusion from her wedding was some kind of clerical error, I picked up the dress and hung it back in the closet, leaving it in its plastic garment bag. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. If Madison was live streaming her wedding, I might as well figure out how to watch it. The website was already up. Madison and David's wedding live stream. There was a countdown timer. 18 hours and 37 minutes. 18 hours and 37 minutes until I watched my daughter get married from my living room, like a stranger who'd stumbled across the event online. I closed the laptop and poured myself a glass of wine, even though it was only 3 p.m. Then I called Diane back. I looked up the live stream, I said when she answered. Oh, Eleanor, the website's been up for weeks. Diane, this wasn't a last-minute decision. I'm so sorry. She planned this. She planned to exclude me and then figured out how to make it sound like an accident. What are you going to do? I looked toward my bedroom where the dress hung in the closet, like evidence of my own foolishness. I'm going to watch the live stream, and then I'm going to figure out what comes next. What do you mean? I mean, I'm tired of being everyone, Diane. I'm tired of being the person they can push aside when it's convenient and pull close when they need something. You sound different. I feel different, and I did. Beneath the hurt and embarrassment, something else was stirring, something that felt almost like relief. I've been making excuses for them for so long, I forgot that I deserved better. You do deserve better. Then maybe it's time I started acting like it. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen as the afternoon light faded outside my window. The house felt different somehow, as if something fundamental had shifted in the space between Madison's phone call and this moment. I thought about Mark, my husband who died 3 years ago. He'd always worried that I gave too much to the kids, that I made it too easy for them to take me for granted. They need to learn that your love isn't unconditional, he'd said once. After Peter had borrowed money for rent and then used it to take his girlfriend on a weekend trip instead. Of course it's unconditional, I'd argued. I'm their mother. Your love can be unconditional, Eleanor, but your resources don't have to be. Neither does your time or your energy. I dismissed his concerns then, chalking them up to his natural skepticism. Mark had grown up in a family where love came with strings attached, and I thought I was being the better parent by loving without conditions. But maybe Mark had understood something I was only beginning to see. Maybe unconditional love didn't mean accepting. Unconditional disrespect. My phone buzzed again. Peter, this time, *, hey mom, can you Venmo me $300? Rent's due tomorrow and I'm a little short. I stared at the message for a long moment. Peter was 31 years old and had been a little short on rent for the better part of 2 years. I'd been covering the difference because I didn't want him to get evicted, because I thought I was helping him get back on his feet. But as I sat there in my kitchen, thinking about the dress hanging in my closet and the livestream website with its cheerful countdown timer, I realized something. I wasn't helping Peter get back on his feet. I was enabling him to stay on his knees. I typed back, I can't help with rent this month, sorry. My finger hovered over the send button for a full minute before I pressed it. The response came back almost immediately. *, what? Why not? Is everything? Okay, everything's fine. I just can't help this time. *, mom, you don't understand. If I don't pay rent tomorrow, they'll start the eviction process. *, then you'd better figure something out. I turned my phone face down on the table and went to make myself dinner. As I stood at the stove, stirring pasta and listening to the quiet of my empty house, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. The absence of anxiety about my children's problems. For the first time in longer than I could remember, Peter's rent wasn't my responsibility. Madison's wedding wasn't my burden to carry. Their problems were their own. It should have felt selfish. Instead, it felt like coming up for air. I woke up the morning of Madison's wedding with a clarity that surprised me. No anxiety, no last-minute panic about what to wear or whether I'd remembered to charge my phone to take pictures. Just a strange, settled feeling like I'd finally stopped fighting a current I'd been swimming against for years. The dress still hung in my closet, tags removed, ready for an event I wouldn't attend. I left it there and put on my regular Saturday clothes instead. Jeans and the soft blue sweater Madison had given me for my birthday 2 years ago, back when she still remembered my birthday. That thought stopped me cold. When had Madison last remembered my birthday without a reminder from Jacob or a guilty text 3 days later? I sat down on my bed and really thought about it. This past March, she'd called on the 5th 2 days, late claiming she'd been swamped at work. The year before that, she'd sent flowers with a card that read, "Happy birthday, Mom," in someone else's handwriting, generic florist message, probably ordered online while she was doing something else. But I could tell you the exact date of every important moment in Madison's life. Her first day of kindergarten, her high school graduation, the day she got accepted to college, her first job, the day David proposed. I'd kept a calendar in my head of everything that mattered to her, and somehow along the way, I'd stopped expecting the same consideration in return. My phone rang. "Diane, how are you holding up?" "I'm okay." "Actually, I'm better than okay." I walked to the kitchen and started making coffee. I keep thinking about things I haven't thought about in years. "What kind of things?" "Do you remember Madison's 21st birthday? The one where you threw her that surprise party at the restaurant?" "That's the one. I spent weeks planning it. Called all her friends, coordinated schedules, ordered a custom cake. The whole thing. It was beautiful. She was so happy." "She was. But do you remember what happened the week before?" Diane was quiet for a moment. "Remind me." "It was my 50th birthday. She was home from college for spring break. I didn't expect anything big, but I thought, I don't know, I thought she'd remember. Maybe suggest dinner, or even just acknowledge it." "Oh, Eleanor. She spent the entire day at the mall with her friends. Came home around 10 that night and said, 'Oh, was that today?' When I mentioned it. I remember now. You were so hurt I was, but I told myself she was young, that college kids lose track of time. I made excuses for her." I poured my coffee and sat down at the kitchen table. Outside, it was a perfect day for a wedding. Sunny, but not too hot, with just enough breeze to make the trees dance. "It wasn't just birthdays, though," I continued. "Remember when Mark was in the hospital for his surgery? Madison was supposed to come home that weekend to help out, but she had that work conference. That's what she said. Except I found out later from her Facebook posts that she'd gone to Napa with David instead. Posted pictures of them at wineries while I was sleeping in a hospital chair." Diane sighed. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I thought I was being petty. I thought I was asking too much." I took a sip of coffee, tasting the bitterness. I spent so many years convincing myself that my expectations were unreasonable. They weren't unreasonable, Eleanor. They were normal. I know that now. But at the time, it was easier to lower my expectations than to confront the fact that my daughter didn't prioritize me the way I prioritized her. My phone buzzed with a text. "Peter again. Asterisk Mom, I really need help with rent. Can you please reconsider?" I showed the message to Diane over FaceTime. "He's been texting me every hour since last night." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. He's 31 years old. If he can't figure out how to pay his rent, that's not my emergency anymore." "Good for you. What did you used to tell us when we were kids?" "Poor planning on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on my part." I laughed, remembering, "I can't believe I used to have boundaries." "You still do? You just forgot how to enforce them." Another text from Peter, asterisk Mom, "Please. I promise I'll pay you back." "He promises he'll pay me back," I told Diane. "Just like he promised the last 15 times. How much have you given him over the years?" I thought about it, really thought about it. God, I don't know. Thousands, rent money, car repairs, credit card payments. I stopped keeping track because it was depressing. And how much has he paid back? None of it. There's always another emergency. Another reason why he can't spare the money yet. Eleanor, that's not borrowing. That's allowance for a grown man. The truth of that hit me like a slap. I'd been giving my 31-year-old son an allowance and calling it help. I'd been enabling his financial irresponsibility and calling it love. "What about Jacob?" Diane asked. "How much have you given him?" "Jacob's different. He actually pays me back. Usually within a month or two, because he respects you enough. Not to take advantage, right?" I paused. "Which means Peter and Madison know exactly what they're doing. They know the difference between asking for help and taking advantage. They just don't care." My phone rang. "Madison." "Don't answer it," Diane said quickly. "Why not?" "Because she's going to try to manipulate you. She's going to make you feel guilty for not being understanding about the seating situation." I stared at the phone as it rang. What if she's calling to apologize? What if she's calling to say she made a mistake? Then she can leave a voicemail. The ringing stopped. A few seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. "Play it," Diane said. I put the phone on speaker and played the message. "Hi, Mom. It's me. I know you're probably getting ready for today, and I just wanted to call and..." Well, I wanted to explain about the seating thing. It really was a mix-up with the venue, and I feel terrible about it. But the live stream is going to be beautiful, and you'll have the best seat in the house, right? No crowds, no noise, just you and the ceremony. I think it might actually be better this way. Anyway, I love you, and I'll call you later to see how you liked it. Bye. Diane and I sat in silence for a moment after the message ended. Did she just try to convince you that watching her wedding on a computer screen is better than being there? Diane asked. She did, and did she apologize? She said she felt terrible. But no, she didn't actually apologize, because she's not actually sorry, she's just trying to manage your reaction. I thought about Madison's voice in the message, the careful way she'd phrased everything, the way she'd made it sound like the live stream was a gift she was giving me instead of a consolation. Prize for being excluded. She's always been good at that, I said, making me feel like I should be grateful for less than I deserve. It's a skill. A manipulative one. Another memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Madison in high school asking to borrow my car for a date when I'd said no because she'd gotten a speeding ticket the week before. She'd spent an hour explaining how walking to meet her boyfriend would be dangerous, how she might get attacked, how I'd never forgive myself if something happened to her. By the end of the conversation, I was apologizing for being overprotective and handing her the keys. She's been practicing on me for years, I realized. Learning how to make me feel guilty for having boundaries, and you've been letting her because I thought that's what good mothers do. I thought love meant never saying no. Love means caring enough to say no when yes would be harmful. I looked at my phone, where Peter's messages were still piling up. The latest one read, "Mom, I know you're mad about something, but please don't take it out on me. I really need your help. He thinks I'm punishing him," I told Diane. "He thinks this is about me being mad. It's not. No, it's about me finally waking up." I typed back, "I'm not mad, Peter. I'm just not helping anymore. Good luck with the rent?" Then. I did something I'd never done before. I muted the conversation. "How does that feel?" Diane asked. "Scary, but also free. You know they're not going to take this well, right? They're going to push back hard." "I know. Madison's going to cry. Peter's going to get angry. They're going to make you feel like you're being cruel, probably, and you're going to want to cave." I thought about that. About the years of caving, of giving in, of convincing myself that keeping peace was more important than keeping my self-respect. "Maybe I will want to cave," I said, "but wanting to and actually doing it are different things." "What changed?" "Eleanor, what finally made you see it?" I looked toward my bedroom, where the wedding dress hung like a monument to my own foolishness. I think it was the dress. The fact that I bought it and altered it and planned my whole day around being there for her, and she was planning to exclude me the entire time. It wasn't just the dress, though. No, it was everything. The dress was just the last straw. I took another sip of coffee, feeling something settle in my chest. I'm 64 years old, Diane. I don't have time to waste on people who don't value me, even if they're my children. Especially if they're your children. They should know better. My phone lit up with another call from Madison. This time I didn't even hesitate. I declined the call and went back to my conversation with my sister. "What are you going to do today?" Diane asked. "I'm going to watch my daughter's wedding on a computer screen, and then I'm going to figure out what kind of mother I want to be for the rest of my life." "What kind is that?" "The kind who loves her children enough to stop enabling them? The kind who teaches them that relationships are reciprocal, even with their mother." It's going to be hard, probably. But you know what's harder? Spending the rest of my life being taken for granted by the people I love most. After I hung up with Diane, I sat in my kitchen and thought about all the times I'd made excuses for my children's behavior, all the times I'd convinced myself that asking for basic respect was asking too much. I thought about Mark's funeral, how Madison had shown up 20 minutes late because she'd stopped for coffee on the way, how Peter had left early because he had a date, how Jacob had been the only one who'd stayed to help me greet people and clean up afterward. I thought about Christmas mornings when they were adults, how they'd open their gifts and then spend the rest of the day on their phones, how I'd cook elaborate meals that they'd eat while scrolling through social media. I thought about all the times I'd called them just to hear their voices, and how they'd always been in a hurry to get off the phone. And I thought about how I'd excused all of it year after year because I was afraid that demanding better would mean losing them entirely. But sitting there in my kitchen on the morning of Madison's wedding, I realized something. I'd already lost them. I'd lost them to my own enabling, to my own fear of conflict, to my own inability to believe I deserved better. The only question now was whether I was going to keep pretending otherwise. At 2:30 in the afternoon, I opened my laptop and navigated to Madison's wedding website. The countdown timer had been replaced with a large Watch Live button. I clicked it and waited for the stream to load. The venue was beautiful, I had to admit. String lights hung between oak trees, and white chairs were arranged in neat rows, facing a flower-covered arch. The camera was positioned at the back, giving viewers the same perspective as the last row of guests. I counted the chairs. 64, exactly what Madison had told me they were planning. The seats were filling up with people I recognized. David's Parents in the front row, his grandmother from Phoenix beside them, Madison's college friends clustered together on the left side, coworkers from her marketing firm, neighbors from the apartment complex where she and David lived, but no empty chair with my name on it. No saved seat with a ribbon or a flower to indicate where the mother of the bride should have been sitting. I took a screenshot. The processional music started and the wedding party began walking down the aisle. Madison's college roommate as maid of honor, David's brother as best man. They looked happy and relaxed, the way people look when everything is going according to plan. Then Madison appeared at the back of the aisle, radiant in a dress I'd never seen before. She'd gone shopping without me, I realized. She'd chosen her wedding dress without her mother's input. Without that traditional moment of me crying in the bridal shop as she found the one. She looked beautiful. She also looked like a stranger. David was crying as she walked toward him, and I found myself crying too, but not for the reason I'd expected. I wasn't crying from joy or pride or the bittersweet emotion of watching my daughter begin her new life. I was crying because I was watching it happen on a screen, like a voyeur, like someone who'd stumbled across a private moment that had nothing to do with them. The officiant began speaking, but his words were muffled by the outdoor acoustics and the poor audio quality of the live stream. I caught fragments. Dearly beloved, sacred commitment, love and honor. Then the stream froze. The image pixelated and stopped. Madison caught mid-smile as she looked up at David. The audio continued for a few more seconds. Something about promises and forever and, then that cut out too. I refreshed the page. Error message. I tried again. The stream loaded, buffered for 30 seconds, then crashed again. My phone rang. My cousin Tracy, Madison's godmother, Eleanor. Are you watching the live stream? I'm trying to. It keeps crashing. Same here. But Eleanor, I need to ask you something. Something in Tracy's voice made me sit up straighter. What? I'm here at the wedding. You're there. I'm in the parking lot. I needed to call you before I go in. Why? Tracy was quiet for a moment. Eleanor, your name was never on the guest list. The words hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean? I helped Madison with some of the planning last month. I saw the original list, the revised list, the final list. Your name was never on any of them. I stared at the frozen screen at my daughter's pixelated face. But she said it was a mix-up. She said the venue miscounted. There was no mix-up. She planned this from the beginning. That can't be right. Eleanor, I'm looking at the seating chart right now. There are exactly 64 chairs, and every single one has a name assigned to it. There's no empty seat, no missing place card. She planned for 64 people, and you weren't one of them. I felt like I was falling, like the ground had disappeared beneath my chair. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth, and because I'm ashamed that I didn't say something sooner. You knew I suspected. When she asked me to help with the invitations, I asked about your invitation, and she got weird about it. Said she was handling family invitations separately. But then when I saw the lists, you saw the lists and you didn't tell me? I thought maybe she'd changed her mind. I thought maybe she'd added you later. I didn't want to believe she'd actually go through with it. I closed my laptop. I couldn't look at the frozen image anymore. Couldn't pretend I was watching my daughter's wedding when I was really just watching evidence of my own exclusion. Tracy, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. How long has this been planned? Not just the exclusion, but how long has Madison been talking about me like I'm a burden? Tracy sighed. Eleanor, please, I need to know. A long time, years maybe. She talks about you like you're needy, like you're always asking for too much attention. What kind of attention? Just normal mother things? She complains when you call to check in, says you're being clingy. She rolls her eyes when you offer to help with things, says you're being controlling. Each word was like a small knife, precise and sharp. And what do you say when she talks like that? I try to defend you. I tell her that's just how mothers are, that you love her, but she doesn't see it that way. How does she see it? She sees you as someone who takes up too much space in her life. I sat in my kitchen, holding the phone and trying to process what I was hearing. My daughter saw me as someone who took up too much space, not someone who loved her, not someone who'd sacrificed for her, not someone who'd spent 34 years putting her needs first. Someone who took up too much space? Is Peter there? I asked. Yes, he's sitting in the third row. Jacob, front row, on the bride's side, so all three of my children were there. All three of them had known I wasn't invited. All three of them had let me buy a dress and plan my day around an event I was never meant to attend. I have to go, I told Tracy. Eleanor, I'm so sorry. I should have said something sooner. It's not your fault. Are you okay? I looked around my empty kitchen at the coffee mug I'd been drinking from all morning, at the quiet house that suddenly felt less like a home and more like a waiting room. I will be, I said. After I hung up, I sat in the silence for a long time. Then I called Diane. How's the wedding? She asked. She didn't forget me, Diane. She removed me. What do you mean? Tracy's at the wedding. She saw the guest lists. All of them. My name was never on any of them. Diane was quiet for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Diane, I'm here. I'm trying to find words that aren't profanity. She planned this from the beginning. The live stream, the excuse about running out of chairs, all of it. She planned to exclude me and then figured out how to make it sound like an accident. Oh, Eleanor. And Peter and Jacob knew. They're all there. Diane, all 3 of my children are at that wedding and not one of them thought to mention that I wasn't invited. Even Jacob, that hurt the most. Jacob, my youngest, the one I'd always thought of as my ally. Jacob, who called me every Sunday, who remembered my birthday, who actually seemed to enjoy my company. Even Jacob. I walked to my bedroom and looked at the dress hanging in my closet. Navy blue with silver beads, perfect for the mother of the bride. I took it off the hanger and laid it on my bed, smoothing out the wrinkles. Then I unzipped it slowly, carefully, the way you'd undress a corpse. I folded it back into its original creases and slipped it into the plastic garment bag. Then I hung it back in the closet next to the shoes I'd bought and the clutch that matched perfectly. Evidence of my own foolishness, preserved for posterity. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Asterisk, hope you're enjoying the live stream. The connection seems spotty, but the ceremony is beautiful. Love you, asterisk. I stared at the message for a long time. She was texting me from her own wedding reception, pretending to care whether I was enjoying watching it on a broken live stream. Pretending this whole situation was just an unfortunate technical difficulty. I typed back. Asterisk. I know. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Asterisk. No. What? Asterisk. I know. I was never invited. I know this wasn't a mix-up. The dots appeared and disappeared several more times. Finally. Asterisk. Can we talk about this later? I'm at my wedding, asterisk. Yes, you are, and I'm not. I turned my phone face down and went to make myself dinner. As I stood at the stove, heating up leftover soup, I thought about all the weddings I'd attended over the years. Friends, children, cousins, coworkers. I'd always felt a little sorry for the mothers who weren't there, who'd had falling outs with their children or who lived too far away to travel. I'd never imagined I'd become one of them. But as I sat at my kitchen table, eating soup and listening to the quiet of my house, I realized something. I wasn't the victim in this story. I was the fool. Madison hadn't betrayed me. She'd simply stopped pretending to value me, and I'd been too invested in the pretense to notice. The question now was what I was going to do about it. Sunday morning came with the particular emptiness that follows a significant event you weren't part of. I woke up thinking about the wedding reception I hadn't attended, the cake I hadn't tasted, the mother-daughter dance that had happened without me. But instead of wallowing, I did something I hadn't done in years. I got dressed, drove to the hardware store, and bought a filing cabinet. Spring cleaning, the cashier asked, as I paid for folders and labels along with the cabinet. Something like that, I said. Back home. I set up the filing cabinet in my home office, a spare bedroom that had been accumulating Madison's college textbooks and Peter's childhood trophies for the past decade. I cleared everything out, donating boxes of their belongings to Goodwill without asking permission. Then I started making lists. The first folder was labeled Financial Support Madison. I pulled out my bank statements from the past 5 years and started documenting every transfer, every check, every bill I'd paid on her behalf. College loans I'd co-signed. Credit card debt I'd helped clear when she was getting back on her feet after graduation. The security deposit for her current apartment, car insurance payments, health insurance premiums, after she'd aged out of my plan but before she'd found a job with benefits. The numbers were staggering. Over $40,000 in 5 years. The second folder was financial support. Peter, this one was even worse. Rent payments, car repairs, credit card bailouts, legal fees from that DUI 3 years ago. The loan for his business venture that had never materialized. Emergency room visits when he didn't have insurance. $57,000 over the same 5-year period. The third folder was financial support. Jacob, this one was thin. A small loan when his car broke down, paid back within 2 months. Help with textbooks one semester, reimbursed the following month. Maybe $3,000 total, all of it repaid. I sat back in my chair and stared at the numbers. Nearly $100,000 I'd given to Madison and Peter over 5 years, and none of it had been repaid. Money that could have gone toward my retirement, toward travel, toward the kitchen renovation I'd been putting off for years. Money I'd given freely because I thought I was helping my children build their lives. But looking at the pattern, I realized I hadn't been helping them build anything. I'd been subsidizing their irresponsibility. My phone rang. Jacob. Hey mom, how are you doing? I'm fine, sweetheart. The endearment slipped out automatically. Even though I was angry with him, I wanted to call about yesterday. Yes, let's talk about yesterday. I kept my voice level, curious rather than accusatory. How was the wedding? It was nice. Small, but nice. He paused. Mom, I need to tell you something. I'm listening. I didn't know you weren't invited until I got there, I swear. I assumed you'd be sitting with family, and when I didn't see you, I asked Madison where you were. What did she say? She said you'd decided not to come. She said you thought it would be too emotional watching her get married so soon after Dad died. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She said I chose not to come. That's what she told everyone. She said you were watching the live stream instead because it would be easier for you, and you believed her. Yes, it sounded like something you might do. You've been more private since Dad died, more careful about emotional situations. He wasn't wrong about that. I had been more careful about putting myself in situations that might overwhelm me, but this felt different. Jacob, did it occur to you to call me, to check if I was okay? I thought about it, but Madison said you specifically asked not to be contacted during the ceremony. She said you wanted space to process it on your own. Madison had thought of everything. She'd crafted a narrative that made my absence seem like my choice, that made her look considerate for respecting my wishes. What did you think when she told you that? Honestly, I was a little hurt that you hadn't told me yourself, but I figured you'd call when you were ready. I see. Mom, are you saying that's not what happened? I looked at the folders spread across my desk at the documentation of years of financial support and emotional labor. Jacob, I need you to think carefully about this. When have I ever avoided family events because they were too emotional? He was quiet for a moment. Never? You've always been the one pushing us to stay connected, to show up for each other. Right? And when have I ever asked not to be contacted during important family moments? Never. You're usually the one calling to make sure everyone's okay. So does Madison's explanation actually make sense to you? A longer pause? No, it doesn't. I bought a dress, Jacob. I had it altered. I planned my whole day around being there. Oh, Mom. I was never invited. Madison planned from the beginning to exclude me, and then she created a story to make it seem like it was my choice. I don't understand. Why would she do that? I don't know, but I'm starting to realize there are a lot of things about my relationship with your sister that I don't understand. Jacob was quiet for so long, I thought he might have hung up. Jacob, I'm here. I'm trying to process this. If you're right, that means Madison lied to everyone. That means she let me believe you were choosing to miss her wedding when really she was choosing to exclude you. That's exactly what it means. But why? What could you have possibly done to deserve that? I looked at the financial folders again, at the evidence of years of unconditional support. I don't think it's about what I did, Jacob. I think it's about who I am. What do you mean? I think I became someone who was easy to take advantage of. Someone who gave so much that my children stopped seeing me as a person with my own needs and feelings. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time Madison called, just to see how I was doing? When was the last time Peter asked about my life instead of asking for money? Jacob didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. You're different, I continued. You call every Sunday. You ask about my day, my health, my plans. You remember my birthday. You pay back money you borrow, but your siblings, they take you for granted, they do. And I let them because I thought that's what love looked like. What are you going to do? I looked around my office at the filing cabinet full of evidence, at the space I'd cleared by removing their belongings. I'm going to stop letting them. What does that mean? It means no more financial bailouts. No more dropping everything. When they have a crisis, no more accepting disrespect in the name of keeping peace. Mom, are you sure? I mean, they're still your children? Yes, they are. And maybe it's time I started treating them like adults instead of like children, who need to be rescued from their own choices. After I hung up with Jacob, I sat in my office for a long time thinking about the conversation. He was the only one of my children who'd seemed genuinely shocked by Madison's behavior. The only one who'd called to check on me after the wedding. The only one who'd been lied to instead of being part of the lie. My phone buzzed with a text from Peter. *, Mom, I really need to talk to you about the rent situation. Can you call me? I looked at the folder labeled Financial Support Peter and all the documentation inside it. Then I typed back, *, I can't help with rent anymore. Peter, you'll need to figure it out yourself. The response came immediately. *, what? Why? Did I do something wrong? *, no, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm just not going to be your financial safety net anymore. *, but, Mom, you don't understand. If I get evicted, I'll have nowhere to go. Asterisk, then you'd better find a way to pay your rent. Asterisk, this isn't like you. Are you having some kind of breakdown? I stared at that message for a long time. Peter thought my refusal to enable him was evidence of a breakdown. He'd become so accustomed to my financial support that he couldn't imagine any reason I'd withdraw it except mental illness. Asterisk, I'm not having a breakdown, Peter. I'm having a realization. Asterisk, what kind of realization? Asterisk, that I've been doing you a disservice by making your problems my responsibility? Asterisk, Mom, you're scaring me. Can we please talk about this in person? Asterisk, we can talk, but my decision isn't going to change. I turned my phone face down and went back to my filing. The next folder was labeled emotional labor. This one was harder to quantify, but I started making lists anyway. Birthday parties I'd planned and hosted while my children sat on their phones. Holiday meals I'd cooked while they argued about politics or complained about their jobs. Family gatherings where I'd played mediator between siblings who couldn't be bothered to resolve their own conflicts. Phone calls where I'd listened to their problems for hours but been cut off when I tried to share my own concerns. Visits where they'd treated my house like a hotel, expecting meals and laundry service without offering to help. The pattern was clear. I gave, they took, and somewhere along the way we'd all started thinking that was normal. But it wasn't normal. It was dysfunction disguised as love. My phone rang again. Madison this time. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I played the message. Mom, Jacob called me, and I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Can you please call me back so we can clear this up? I love you, and I hate that you're upset about something that was just a logistical issue. A logistical issue. She was still trying to frame my exclusion from her wedding as a simple mistake. Even though we both knew the truth, I didn't call her back. Instead, I opened a new folder and labeled it Boundaries. This one was going to be the most important of all. Monday morning, I called my insurance agent. Eleanor, how are you, dear? How was Madison's wedding? Janet had been handling my insurance for 15 years. She'd known Madison since she was in college, had helped me add her to my car insurance when she'd needed coverage, had walked me through the process of making her a beneficiary on my life insurance policy. The wedding was educational, I said. But that's actually why I'm calling. I need to make some changes to my policies. Of course, what kind of changes? I want to remove Madison and Peter from my car insurance. Immediately. Oh, is everything okay? Everything's fine. I just don't want to be financially responsible for their driving anymore. Janet was quiet for a moment. Eleanor, if I remove them from your policy, they'll need to get their own coverage right away. If they're caught driving without insurance, that's their responsibility now. Are you sure? This seems sudden. I'm sure. Can you do it today? Yes, but Eleanor, can I ask what's brought this on? You've always been so supportive of your children. I looked out my kitchen window at the neighbor's garden where spring flowers were pushing through the soil. New growth after a long winter. I'm still supportive, Janet, but there's a difference between supporting someone and enabling them. I'm learning to tell the difference. I see. Well, if you're certain, I am. And Janet. I also want to review my life insurance beneficiaries. Okay. Right now you have Madison, Peter, and Jacob as equal beneficiaries, with your sister Diane as the contingent beneficiary. I want to change that. I want Jacob to receive 50%, and I want Diane to receive the other 50%. What about Madison and Peter? Remove them. Janet was quiet for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Janet, I'm here. Eleanor, this is a significant change. Are you sure you want to remove your own children as beneficiaries? 2 of my children, and yes, I'm sure. Can I suggest that you take some time to think about this? Maybe discuss it with your family? These kinds of decisions are exactly the kind I should be making for myself, without consulting people who might benefit from them. Of course, you're right. I just want to make sure you're making these changes for the right reasons. What would be the right reasons? Well, usually when people remove children as beneficiaries, it's because of addiction issues, or estrangement, or because they've realized that leaving money to people who've never learned to manage it responsibly isn't actually helping them. Janet sighed. I'll process the changes today. You'll receive confirmation paperwork within the week. Thank you. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. The satisfaction of making decisions based on my own judgment instead of other people's expectations. My phone rang. Peter, Mom, what the hell? Madison just called me crying. She said Jacob told her. You think she deliberately didn't invite you to the wedding? Hello to you too, Peter. Don't deflect. Is it true? Do you really think Madison would do something that cruel? I thought about how to answer that. The old me would have backpedaled, would have minimized my concerns to keep peace. The new me had documentation. Peter, let me ask you something. Were you surprised not to see me at the wedding? What do you mean? I mean, when you walked into that venue and looked around, were you surprised that I wasn't there? Well, Madison had explained. What did she explain? She said you'd decided it would be too emotional for you, that you wanted to watch from home instead. And that made sense to you at the time. Yeah. You've been more private since Dad died. Peter, in the 31 years you've known me, when have I ever voluntarily missed a major family event because it might be too emotional? He was quiet. When have I ever asked to be excluded from something important? Never. So why? Did Madison's explanation make sense to you? I don't know. I guess I didn't really think about it. Or you didn't want to think about it. Because thinking about it would have meant confronting the fact that your sister was lying. Mom, that's not fair. What's not fair is that all 3 of my children knew I wasn't going to be at that wedding. And not one of you thought to call me beforehand to check if I was okay with that arrangement. We thought you were okay with it, because Madison told you I was, and you all chose to believe her instead of asking me directly. We didn't choose anything. You just took the path of least resistance. It was easier to believe Madison's story than to question why the mother of the bride wouldn't be at the wedding. Peter was quiet for a long time. You're right? I should have called you. Yes, you should have. I'm sorry. I appreciate that. But Peter, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the wedding. This is about a pattern of behavior that I'm not going to tolerate anymore. What kind of pattern? The pattern where you and Madison treat me like a convenience instead of a person? Where you expect unlimited financial and emotional support, but don't offer basic respect in return. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? I call you. You call me when you need money or when you're in trouble. When was the last time you called just to talk? He couldn't answer. When was the last time you asked about my life, my health, my plans? Still nothing. Peter, I love you, but I'm not going to continue being your personal ATM and emotional dumping ground. What does that mean? It means no more financial bailouts. No more dropping everything when you have a crisis that's actually a consequence of your own choices. No more accepting disrespect because I'm afraid of losing you. You're not going to lose me. Good. Then you won't have any trouble adjusting to a relationship based on mutual respect instead of financial dependency. Mom, you're being really harsh. I'm being honest. For the first time in years, I'm being completely honest about what this relationship has become. And what has it become? One-sided? You take. I give. You need. I provide. You mess up? I fix it. That's not a relationship, Peter. That's parenthood extended far beyond its expiration date. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to think about whether you want to have a real relationship with me, or whether you just want to keep me around as a safety net. Of course I want a real relationship. Then prove it. Call me sometime when you don't need anything. Ask me about my day. Remember my birthday without a reminder? Treat me like someone whose feelings matter. I do think your feelings matter. No, you don't. If you thought my feelings mattered, you would have called me before the wedding to make sure I was really okay with not being there. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling drained, but also strangely energized. It was exhausting to finally speak the truth, but it was also liberating. My phone buzzed with a text from Jacob. Asterisk, can I come over tonight? I want to talk. Asterisk, of course. Dinner's at 6 if you want to join me. Asterisk, I'll be there. Jacob was the only one of my children who'd never taken my presence in his life for granted. He was also the only one who'd been genuinely deceived about the wedding situation, rather than being complicit in it. If I was going to rebuild relationships with my children, Jacob would be the place to start. But first, I had one more phone call to make. I dialed my attorney's office, Henry Morrison's office. This is Sarah. Hi, Sarah. It's Eleanor Martinez. I need to schedule an appointment with Henry to update my will. Of course, Mrs. Martinez. How soon do you need to see him? This week, if possible. I have an opening Thursday at 10. Will that work? Perfect. Can I ask what kind of updates you're looking to make? Henry likes to prepare beforehand. I need to revise my beneficiaries and make some changes to my estate planning. I'll let him know. See you Thursday. After I hung up, I sat in my office looking at the filing cabinet I'd organized the day before. Evidence of years of one-sided relationships, of boundaries ignored and respect taken for granted. But also, evidence that I had more power in these relationships than I'd realized. Madison and Peter might not respect me, but they needed me. And need, I was beginning to understand, could be leveraged into respect if I was strategic about it. I wasn't going to be cruel or vindictive. I was simply going to stop being convenient. And if my children wanted to maintain relationships with me, they were going to have to learn to value me for more than just what I could provide. Wednesday morning, my phone started ringing at 7:30. Madison. Mom, I just got a call from my landlord. He says you're no longer guaranteeing my lease. I was still in my robe, making coffee. That's right. What do you mean, that's right? You can't just remove yourself as a guarantor without telling me. I can, actually. I called him Monday and asked to be removed from any future lease agreements. But Mom, our lease is up for renewal next month. If you're not the guarantor, we might not qualify on our own. Then you'd better figure out how to qualify on your own. We can't afford the deposit and first month's rent without your help. I poured my coffee and sat down at the kitchen table. Madison, you and David both have good jobs. You should be able to afford your own apartment. It's not that simple. The rent has gone up and we have other expenses. What other expenses? Student loans, car payments, credit cards. The credit cards I helped you pay off. Last year, well, yes, but we had to use them again for wedding expenses. Wedding expenses for a wedding I wasn't invited to. Silence on the other end of the line. Madison, let me ask you something. How much do you think I've spent supporting you financially over the past 5 years? I don't know. Not that much. Over $40,000? That can't be right. I have documentation, bank statements, canceled checks, transfer records. $43,712. Mom, you're making it sound like I forced you to give me that money. You didn't force me, but you also never said no when I offered. Never suggested that maybe you should handle your own financial problems. Never even said thank you most of the time. Of course I said thank you when I always appreciate your help. Appreciating and acknowledging are different things, Madison. But that's beside the point now. What's the point? The point is that I'm not going to be your financial safety net anymore. You're 34 years old. It's time you learn to live within your means. I can't believe you're doing this now, right after my wedding. Your wedding that I watched on a broken live stream from my living room, Mom? I explained about that. It was a venue issue. Madison, stop. Please just stop lying to me. I'm not lying. I have screenshots of the seating chart. I know there were exactly 64 chairs and exactly 64 names, and mine wasn't one of them. I know you told people I chose not to come because it would be too emotional for me. Silence. I know you planned from the beginning to exclude me and then created a story to make it seem like my choice. That's not I didn't. Madison, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done pretending this didn't happen. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. Why didn't you want me at your wedding? Another long silence. It's not that I didn't want you there. Then what was it? It's just, you can be a lot sometimes, Mom. You get emotional at family events and you ask a lot of questions, and you want to be involved in everything. David's family is more reserved. I didn't want things to be awkward. I felt like I'd been slapped. I'm too much for you. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. You excluded me from your wedding because you think I'm embarrassing. I think you sometimes don't read social cues very well. What social cues? Like when people want space, or when you're asking too many questions, or when you're being too motherly. I'm your mother, Madison. I know, but that doesn't mean you have to act like it all the time. The words hit me like physical blows. My daughter was ashamed of me for being maternal. She was embarrassed by my love, annoyed by my interest in her life, uncomfortable with my presence at her own wedding. I see, I said quietly. Mom, don't take it the wrong way. How should I take it, Madison? You just told me you excluded me from the most important day of your life because I'm too motherly. That's not. I just meant, you meant that having me there would have been awkward for David's family. That my presence would have been an embarrassment. You're twisting my words. I'm repeating your words. My phone buzzed with another call. Peter, Madison, I have to go. Your brother is calling. Mom, wait. Can we please talk about this more? I feel like you're misunderstanding. There's nothing to misunderstand. You've been very clear about how you see me. I hung up and answered Peter's call. Mom, what the hell is going on? I just got a notification that my car insurance was canceled. Good morning to you too, Peter. Don't joke around. I need insurance to drive to work. Then you should get insurance. I can't afford insurance right now. That's why I was on your policy. Peter, you're 31 years old. Most adults your age have their own car. Insurance? Most adults my age don't have student loans and rent and all the other expenses I have. Most adults your age budget for their expenses instead of expecting their mothers to cover them. I don't expect you to cover them. I just need help right now. You've needed help for 2 years. At what point does temporary help become permanent dependence? It's not permanent. As soon as I get the promotion at work, Peter, you've been saying that for 6 months. These things take time. So does learning to live within your means. Mom, I can't drive without insurance. If I get pulled over, I could lose my license. Then you'd better figure out how to pay for insurance. Can you at least give me a month to get my own policy? You've had 2 years to get your own policy. Please, Mom, I'm begging you. Something in his tone made me pause. Peter was genuinely panicked, and for a moment I felt the familiar urge to rescue him. But then I thought about Madison's words. Asterisk, you can be a lot sometimes. I thought about being excluded from her wedding because my love was embarrassing. Peter, I love you, but I'm not going to enable your financial irresponsibility anymore. It's not irresponsibility, it's hard out there, Mom. Everything's expensive. Jobs don't pay enough. It's not like when you were young, you're right. It is hard. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to make it easier for you. You're my mother. Yes, and I raised you to be a capable adult. It's time I started treating you like one. By cutting me off, by stopping the flow of money that's preventing you from learning to manage your own life. Peter was quiet for a moment. What if I paid you back? What if I set up a payment plan for all the money you've given me? How much do you think you owe me, Peter? I don't know, a few thousand, $57,000? That's impossible. I have documentation, even if that's true. I can't pay back $57,000. I know, which is why I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? I'm asking you to stop expecting me to solve your problems for you. I don't expect that. Peter, you called me at 7:30 in the morning because your car insurance was canceled. You didn't call to ask how I was doing or to see if I needed anything. You called because you needed me to fix something for you. That's not, I would have asked how you were, would you? Or would you have gotten off the phone as soon as you got what you needed? He didn't. Answer, Peter, when was the last time you called me just to talk? I call you all the time. You call me when you need something. When was the last time you called just because you wanted to hear my voice? Silence. When was the last time you asked about my life? I ask about your life. You ask if I'm okay when you need to make sure I'm stable enough to help you. That's not the same thing. Mom, you're being really unfair. I'm being honest. And if honesty feels unfair to you, that might tell you something about what our relationship has become. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't satisfaction, exactly, but it wasn't regret either. It was clarity. For years, I'd been enabling my children's dependence on me while telling myself I was being supportive. I'd been accepting their disrespect while telling myself I was being understanding. But watching Madison's wedding from my living room had forced me to see the truth. They didn't see me as a person deserving of love and respect. They saw me as a resource to be managed. My phone buzzed with a text from Jacob. Asterisk still on for dinner. Tonight, yes. Looking forward to it. Jacob was different. Jacob called to check on me, remembered my birthday, paid back money he borrowed, and seemed genuinely interested in my life. Jacob also hadn't known I was being excluded from the wedding. If there was hope for rebuilding genuine relationships with my children, it would start with the one who'd never stop seeing me as a person worth loving. Thursday evening, Jacob arrived at my house with flowers and a bottle of wine. You didn't need to bring anything, I said, but I was touched by the gesture. When was the last time one of my children had brought me flowers? I wanted to, he said, kissing my cheek. How are you holding up? Better than I expected, actually. We sat in my kitchen while I finished making dinner chicken parmesan, Jacob's favorite since he was 12. Mom, I need to apologize to you for what? For not questioning Madison's story about the wedding? For not calling you beforehand to make sure you were really okay with not being there? I set down my spatula and looked at him. Jacob, you were lied to. That's not your fault, but I should have known better. I should have known you'd never voluntarily miss Madison's wedding. You trusted your sister. That's not a character flaw. It is when that trust comes at the expense of my relationship with you. I served our plates and sat down across from him. Tell me about the wedding. What was it actually like? Jacob was quiet for a moment, cutting his chicken honestly. It felt weird without you there. Weird how? Like something was missing. Madison kept acting like everything was perfect, but there was this undercurrent of, I don't know, tension, maybe? What kind of tension? Well, for one thing, several people asked where you were. Aunt Diane's friend Carol, some of your old neighbors. Even David's mom asked if you were feeling okay. What did Madison tell them? The same thing she told us. That you'd chosen to watch from home because it would be less emotional for you. And how did people react to that? Most of them seemed surprised. Carol actually said it didn't sound like you at all. I took a sip of wine thinking about Carol. She'd been Diane's friend for 30 years, had known me since the kids were small. Did anyone else say anything? David's mom seemed confused. She kept saying how much she'd been looking forward to meeting you in person. How disappointed she was that you weren't there. She was disappointed. She said she'd heard so much about you from David, about how welcoming you'd been when they visited, how you'd made her feel like part of the family. That stung. David's mother had wanted to meet me, had been looking forward to it. Madison had deprived both of us of that connection. What about Peter? How did he seem uncomfortable? He kept looking around like he was expecting you to show up anyway. But he didn't call me. No, none of us did. Jacob put down his fork. Mom, I keep thinking about that and it makes me feel sick. Even if we believed Madison's explanation, we should have checked on you. We should have made sure you were okay. Yes, you should have. The fact that we didn't, it says something about how we've been treating you, doesn't it? I looked at my youngest son, 27 years old, and finally seeing what I'd been trying to ignore for years. What do you think it says? I think it says we've gotten used to putting your needs last. We've gotten so comfortable with you always being there, always being understanding, that we stopped thinking about whether you might need something from us. That's very insightful. It's also terrible, Mom. I'm so sorry. Jacob, you're different from your siblings. You call me every Sunday. You remember my birthday. You ask about my life, but I still didn't question why you weren't at the wedding. I still chose to believe a story that didn't make sense instead of picking up the phone you did, and I appreciate that you recognize that. We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Jacob asked, "What are you going to do about Madison and Peter?" "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring that out." "Are you really cutting them off financially?" "Yes, completely. Completely. That's going to be hard for them. It should be hard for them. They're adults. Managing their own finances should be their responsibility, not mine. What if they can't handle it? What if Peter gets evicted or Madison can't renew her lease? Then they'll figure out alternatives. People do it every day, but they're your children." I looked at Jacob, this son who'd never asked me to rescue him from the consequences of his own choices. "Jacob, let me ask you something. When your car broke down last year, what did you do? I called you to ask for a loan to get it fixed. And then what? I paid you back over the next 2 months, right? You borrowed money for a legitimate emergency, and then you took responsibility for paying it back. That's how adults handle financial problems. Okay, now, when Peter needs money, what does he do? He asks you for it, and then what? He doesn't pay it back, right? He treats me like a bank account instead of like a person who deserves respect. I see the difference. Because I want to make sure you understand that I'm not punishing Madison and Peter. I'm just refusing to enable them anymore. What's the difference? Punishment is about making someone suffer for their mistakes. Enabling is about preventing someone from experiencing the natural consequences of their choices. I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm just not going to protect them from reality anymore. Jacob nodded slowly. That makes sense, does it? Because I need you to understand this, Jacob. I need at least one of my children to understand what I'm doing and why. I do. Understand. And honestly, Mom, I think you should have done this years ago. Why? Because Madison and Peter have been taking advantage of you and it's been hard to watch. You've noticed. Of course I've noticed. Do you think I don't? See the way they talk to you? The way they only call when they need something? The way they dismiss your opinions and ignore your feelings? Then why didn't you say anything? Because I thought it wasn't my place. I thought it was between you and them. But watching you get excluded from Madison's wedding, seeing how they all just went along with it, I realized that staying out of it was actually a form of enabling too. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Thank you for saying that, Mom. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you angry with me? For not standing up for you sooner. I thought about that. Was I angry with Jacob? He'd been deceived about the wedding, but he'd also stood by and watched his siblings treat me poorly for years. I'm disappointed, I said finally, but I'm not angry. You're the only one of my children who's ever treated me with consistent respect. I could have done more. You could have. But Jacob, I can't expect you to manage your siblings' relationships with me. That's not your responsibility. What is my responsibility? To have an honest, respectful relationship with me, which you do, and to call you out when I see you being treated badly, that would be nice. But mostly, I just need you to keep being who you are. Who am I? You're the son who calls every Sunday just to talk. Who remembers my birthday without a reminder? Who pays back money he borrows? Who asks about my day and actually listens to the answer? Jacob smiled. That doesn't seem like a very high bar. It shouldn't be, but apparently it is. After dinner, we sat in my living room with coffee, and Jacob told me more about the wedding. There was one moment, he said, when Madison was cutting the cake, and she looked around the room like she was looking for someone looking for me. I think so, just for a second. She had this expression on her face like something was wrong. But she didn't call me. No. David said something to her and she smiled and went back to cutting the cake. What do you think? David said. I don't know. But Mom, I don't think David was part of the decision to exclude you. What makes you say that? Just The way he acted, he seemed genuinely confused when people asked where you were. And at one point, I heard him tell his mom that he wished you could have been there. Interesting. I think this was all Madison's idea. I think she convinced David that you'd chosen not to come. So David thinks I voluntarily missed his wedding. Probably. I thought about that. David was a nice young man, and I'd always gotten along well with him. If he thought I'd chosen to miss his wedding, he probably thought I didn't care about him or his relationship with Madison. Another casualty of Madison's deception? Jacob, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, do you think I'm too much? Do you think I'm embarrassing or clingy or overly emotional? What? No, why would you ask that? Because that's what Madison told me. She said she didn't invite me to the wedding because I can be a lot sometimes, and she was worried I'd be awkward around David's family. Jacob stared at me. She said that. She said I don't read social cues well, that I'm too motherly, that I ask too many questions. That's ridiculous. Is it? Maybe I have been too involved in their lives. Maybe I have been clingy. Mom, you're one of the most socially aware people I know. You're warm and welcoming and interested in people's lives. That's not clingy. That's just being a good person. But maybe to Madison. To Madison, you're an inconvenience. But that's not about you being too much. That's about her being selfish? You really think so? I know so. Mom, you've never been anything but appropriate at family events. You've never embarrassed anyone or been overly emotional or asked inappropriate questions. Then why does Madison see me that way? Because it's easier to blame you for being too much than to admit. She's ashamed of having a mother who actually loves her. The words hit me like a revelation. Madison wasn't embarrassed by my behavior. She was embarrassed by my love. That's a terrible thing to be ashamed of, I said quietly. It is, and it's her loss, not yours. We sat in comfortable silence. For a while, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, the simple pleasure of being understood by one of my children. Jacob, I want you to know that no matter what happens with Madison and Peter, you and I are okay. I'm glad. But Mom, I hope you won't give up on them completely. I'm not giving up on them. I'm just changing the terms of our relationships. What does that mean? It means they're going to have to decide whether they want me in their lives as a person or just as a resource. And if they choose the latter, they're going to be disappointed. And if they choose the former, then we'll rebuild from there. Jacob smiled. I think you're doing the right thing, even if it's hard, especially because it's hard. The easy thing would be to keep enabling them and pretending everything's fine. The easy thing would be to stay invisible. But you're not invisible, Mom. You never were. They just convinced you that you were. After Jacob left, I sat in my living room thinking about our conversation. For the first time since Madison's wedding, I felt hopeful. I had one child who saw me clearly, who valued me for who I was rather than what I could provide. It was a start. Friday afternoon, Madison showed up at my door without calling first. She was carrying a bouquet of grocery store flowers and wearing the expression she'd perfected as a teenager when she'd been caught breaking curfew. Hi, Mom, can we talk? I let her in, though every instinct told me to be careful. Madison was skilled at manipulation, and I was still learning to recognize it. I brought you flowers, she said, holding out the bouquet. Thank you. I took them, but didn't immediately go to put them in water. What did you want to talk about? I want to apologize. About the wedding? About everything? We sat in my living room, Madison on the couch where she'd spent countless hours as a child. Me in my chair where I'd listened to her problems and celebrated her successes for 34 years. I'm listening, I said. Mom, I need you to know that excluding you from the wedding wasn't personal. How could it not be personal, Madison? I'm your mother. I mean, it wasn't about you specifically. It was about logistics. Madison, please don't lie to me anymore. We both know there were no logistics issues. She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her recalibrating her approach. Okay, you're right. It wasn't really about logistics. Then what was it about? It was about David's family. They're very traditional, very formal. I was worried about how they'd react to what? To you being so involved. Involved how, the way you get emotional at family events. The way you want to help with everything. The way you ask a lot of questions. I felt the familiar sting of her words, but this time I was prepared for it. Madison, let me make sure I understand. You excluded me from your wedding because you were embarrassed by the way I show love. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. You were worried that David's family would see me being motherly and think less of you. It's more complicated than that. How is it more complicated? She sighed, and for a moment she looked like the little girl who used to climb into my lap when she was scared. Mom, David's family is very different from ours. They're more reserved. They don't show emotion the way we do. I was worried that if you were there, being yourself, they'd think we were too much. So you decided I was too much. I decided it would be easier if you weren't there. Easier for whom? For everyone, including me, I thought. I thought you'd understand. I stared at my daughter, this woman I'd raised to be confident and independent, who was now telling me she'd excluded me from the most important day of her life because she was ashamed of my love. Madison, do you remember when you were 16 and you broke up with that boy? What was his name? Derek. Derek Morrison. What does that have to do with anything? Do you remember how upset you were? How you cried for 3 days straight? Yeah, do you remember what I did? You let me stay home from school. You made me soup and sat with me while I cried. I canceled my weekend plans with Aunt Diane. I called in sick to work on Monday, so I could take you shopping for new clothes to make you feel better. I remember, and when Derek called wanting to get back together, what did I do? You told him I wasn't available and that he should stop calling? I protected you. I put your needs first, even when it was inconvenient for me. Mom, where are you going with this? I'm trying to understand how the daughter I protected and prioritized for 34 years could grow up to exclude me from her wedding because she was embarrassed by my love. Madison's eyes filled with tears. I wasn't embarrassed by your love? Yes, you were. You were embarrassed by the way I show emotion. You were embarrassed by the way I care about people. You were embarrassed by me. That's not true. Madison, you told David's family that I chose not to come to the wedding. You let them think I didn't care enough about you or David to be there? I was trying to protect you. From what? From feeling uncomfortable. David's family can be kind of judgmental, and I didn't want you to feel out of place. So instead, you made me feel completely worthless. That wasn't my intention, but that was the result. We sat in silence for a moment. Madison wiped her eyes with a tissue from the box on my coffee table. Mom, I'm sorry. I really am. I made a mistake. What mistake did you make, specifically? I should have invited you to the wedding. Why? Because you're my mother? Is that the only reason? What do you mean? I mean, are you sorry because you hurt me? Or are you sorry because you're facing consequences for hurting me? I'm sorry because I hurt you. Are you? Or are you sorry because your landlord won't renew your lease without a guarantor? Madison's face changed, the vulnerable expression replaced by something harder. That's not fair. What's not fair is that you excluded me from your wedding and then lied about it. What's not fair is that you let people think I didn't care about you when the truth is you didn't want me there. I did want you there. No, you didn't. You wanted the financial support I provide without the inconvenience of my actual presence. That's not true. Madison, when was the last time you called me just to talk? I call you all the time. You call me when you need something. When was the last time you called just because you wanted to hear my voice? She couldn't answer. When was the last time you asked about my life without it being a preface to asking for help with yours? Still nothing? When was the last time you said thank you for all the financial support I've given you over the years? I always say thank you. No, you don't. You say, I appreciate it, or you're the best, or nothing at all. But you don't actually acknowledge that I've given you over $40,000 in 5 years. $40,000. $43,712. I have documentation. Madison stared at me. I had no idea. It was that much because you never thought about it. You just took the money and assumed it would keep coming. I didn't assume. Madison, you called me yesterday morning in a panic because your landlord won't renew your lease without a guarantor. You didn't call to apologize for excluding me from your wedding. You called because you needed something from me. I called about both things. No, you called about the lease and then remembered you should probably apologize. Madison was quiet for a long time, and I could see her processing what I was saying. Mom, I know I haven't been the best daughter. You haven't been a daughter at all. Madison, you've been a dependent. That's harsh. It's accurate. Daughters have relationships with their mothers. Dependents just take what they need and move on. I want to have a relationship with you. Do you? Or do you want to have access to my resources? I want a relationship. Then prove it. How? Start by telling me the truth about why you didn't want me at your wedding. Madison was quiet for so long I thought she might not answer. I was afraid you'd cry during the ceremony, she said finally, and that you'd want to help with everything and make it about you somehow. How would I make your wedding about me? You have a way of taking over, making yourself the center of attention. I felt like I'd been slapped. Have I ever made myself the center of attention at your events? At my college graduation, you cried so hard that people kept asking if you were okay. I was proud of you. I know, but it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing that your mother was proud of you. It was embarrassing that you made such a scene. Madison, I cried quietly during your graduation. I didn't make a scene. You were sobbing. I was emotional. There's a difference. Not to the people around us. I stared at my daughter, trying to understand how my joy and pride in her accomplishments had become something shameful to her. So you excluded me from your wedding because you were afraid I might show emotion. I was afraid you might show too much emotion. What's too much, Madison? What's the acceptable amount of emotion for a mother to show at her daughter's wedding? I don't know. Less than what you usually show, I see. So the problem isn't that I don't love you. The problem is that I love you too much, and it makes you uncomfortable. That's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying. You're telling me that my love is embarrassing to you? Madison started crying again, but this time it felt manipulative rather than genuine. Mom, I don't want to fight with you. I just want things to go back to normal. What's normal, Madison? You know, the way things were before. You mean when I paid your bills and co-signed your leases and helped you with everything while you treated me like an inconvenience? I never treated you like an inconvenience. You excluded me from your wedding, Madison. If that's not treating me like an inconvenience, what is? I made a mistake. Yes, you did. But the mistake wasn't excluding me from the wedding. The mistake was thinking you could exclude me and then manipulate me into pretending it didn't happen. I'm not trying to manipulate you. You brought me flowers and tears and an apology that isn't really an apology. You're trying to manage my reaction so you can get back to using me as your financial safety net. That's not true. Madison, if I forgive you right now and things go back to normal, will you start calling me just to talk? Will you start asking about my life? Will you start treating me like a person whose feelings matter? She didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. I thought so, I said. Mom, what do you want from me? I want you to decide whether you want a mother or a bank account, because you can't have both anymore. What does that mean? It means if you want a relationship with me, it has to be a real relationship, based on mutual respect and genuine affection, not financial dependency. And if I choose the relationship, then we'll rebuild from there. But Madison, it has to be genuine. I'm not going to accept fake affection in exchange for continued financial support. How will you know if it's genuine? Because genuine affection doesn't come with conditions, and it doesn't disappear when the money stops flowing. Madison stood up, and I could see her anger breaking through the facade of contrition. So that's it? You're cutting me off because I made one mistake? I'm setting boundaries because you've made the same mistake for years. The wedding was just the moment I finally saw it clearly. What mistake? Treating me like I exist to serve you instead of like I'm a person deserving of love and respect. I do love and respect you, no, Madison. You love what I provide. You respect my ability to solve your problems. But you don't love or respect me. She headed toward the door and I followed her. Mom, I hope you change your mind about this. I really do. I hope you change yours. What do you mean? I hope you decide that having a mother who loves you is more valuable than having a mother who pays your bills. After she left, I put her flowers in water and sat in my kitchen thinking about our conversation. She'd apologized, but only because she needed something from me. She'd acknowledged hurting me, but only after trying to justify it. Most tellingly, she'd asked what I wanted from her, as if love and respect were unreasonable demands. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just sad for the relationship we'd never had and probably never would have. But I was also clear about what came next. Madison would have to choose between having me as a person or having me as a resource. And based on our conversation, I was pretty sure I knew which she'd choose. Saturday morning, I called Jacob and asked him to come over. I want to show you something, I said. He arrived an hour later with coffee and pastries from the bakery downtown. You sounded serious on the phone. Everything okay? Everything's fine, actually. Everything's clearer than it's been in years. I led him to my home office, where the filing cabinet sat with all its organized folders. On my desk was a thick 3-ring binder I'd put together the night before. What's this? Jacob asked, sitting down across from my desk. Documentation, I said, opening the binder. 5 years of financial records showing exactly how much money I've given Madison and Peter. Jacob's eyes widened as he looked at the first page's summary sheet with totals for each child. Jesus, Mom, this is almost $100,000. $97,438, to be exact. I had no idea it was this much. Neither did they. When I told Madison it was over $40,000, she was genuinely shocked. Jacob flipped through the pages, looking at bank statements, canceled checks, and transfer records. Each entry was highlighted and annotated with the reason for the payment. Look at this, he said, pointing to a series of entries from last year. You paid Peter's rent 6 months in a row, and his car insurance, and his credit card minimum payments. Mom, this isn't helping someone get back on their feet. This is supporting someone who has no intention of standing up. That's what I've realized. Jacob continued reading, and I watched his expression change from surprise to concern to something that looked like anger. This entry here, he said, pointing to a payment from 2 years ago. You gave Madison $3,000 for emergency dental work? Yes. But look at her Facebook posts from that same week. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through Madison's social media. She and David went to Cabo. I know. She lied to you about needing dental work so she could go on vacation. She did. And this one, he said, flipping to another page. You paid Peter's legal fees for his DUI, and then 2 weeks later he bought a new motorcycle. A used motorcycle, but yes. Jacob closed the binder and looked at me. Mom, this isn't just taking advantage of your generosity. This is fraud. It's not fraud, Jacob. I gave them the money willingly, based on lies, based on my own willingness to believe whatever story would let me keep helping them. Why are you showing me this? Because I need you to understand that what I'm doing isn't cruel or vindictive. It's necessary. You don't need to convince me, Mom. After seeing this, I'm surprised you didn't cut them off years ago. I should have, but I kept thinking that if I just helped them a little more, they'd get stable and start treating me better. How's that working out? Well, Madison excluded me from her wedding, and Peter hasn't called me just to talk in over 2 years, so not great. Jacob was quiet for a moment, still looking through the binder. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you ever ask them to pay you back? I did, sometimes, but they always had reasons why they couldn't. Another emergency, another expense, another crisis. And you accepted that? I accepted it because I thought that's what love looked like. I thought good mothers don't keep score. There's a difference between keeping score and having basic expectations of respect. I know that now. Jacob closed the binder and leaned back in his chair. What are you going to do with this? I'm going to keep it as a reminder. When they try to make me feel guilty for setting boundaries, I'm going to look at this and remember that I've already given them more than most parents could afford to give. Are you going to show it to them? I don't think so. It's not about making them feel guilty. It's about making sure I don't cave when they try to manipulate me. Smart. My phone rang. Peter, should I answer it? I asked Jacob. Up to you, but if you do, don't let him make you feel bad about your decisions. I answered the call. Hi, Peter. Mom, we need to talk. Can I come over? I'm busy right now. It's important. It's about my rent situation. I looked at Jacob, who shook his head slightly. Peter, I've already told you I can't help with rent anymore. But Mom, you don't understand. If I get evicted, it'll be on my credit report. It'll make it even harder for me to find a place I can afford. Then you'd better figure out how to avoid eviction. I can't figure it out without help. You're 31 years old, Peter. You should be able to figure out how to pay your own rent. That's easy for you to say. You own your house. You don't have to deal with landlords and security deposits and all the expenses of renting. I own my house because I worked for 30 years and saved money and made responsible financial decisions. It was easier when you were young. The economy was better. Jobs paid more. Peter, stop. I'm not going to debate economic conditions. With you, I'm just not going to pay your rent anymore. Why not? What's changed? I looked at the binder on my desk, at the documentation of nearly $60,000 I'd given him over 5 years. What's changed is that I've realized helping you avoid the consequences of your choices isn't actually helping you at all. That's not what you're doing. It's exactly what I'm doing. Every time you make a poor financial decision, I bail you out. Every time you fail to budget properly, I cover the difference. I've been enabling your irresponsibility for years. You've been helping me. No, Peter, I've been preventing you from learning to help yourself. So you're just going to let me become homeless? I'm going to let you be responsible for your own housing situation. That's the same thing. Only if you choose to make it the same thing. Peter was quiet for a moment. Mom, I don't understand why you're being so cold. I'm not being cold. I'm being honest. You've never been like this before. You're right. I've never had boundaries before. I've never expected you to take responsibility for your own life before. I do take responsibility. When? When have you ever solved a financial problem without asking me for help? I solve problems all the time. Name one. Silence. Peter, I love you, but I'm not going to keep subsidizing your inability to live within your means. What if I promise to pay you back this time? You've promised that before. This time will be different. How? I'll set up a payment plan. I'll pay you back $50 a month until it's paid off. I looked at Jacob, who was shaking his head. Peter, at $50 a month, it would take you 8 years to pay back just this month's rent. And that's assuming you never ask for help again. I won't ask for help again. You asked for help last month, and the month before that, and every month for the past 2 years, but this time nothing. Peter, I'm not giving you money for rent. Fine. Then I'll be homeless, and it'll be your fault. No, Peter. If you become homeless, it'll be because you failed to pay your rent. That's your responsibility, not mine. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. I helped you for 31 years. Now I'm going to help you learn too. Help yourself." After I hung up, Jacob and I sat in silence for a moment. "How do you feel?" he asked. Sad, but also relieved. Relieved. For the first time in years, Peter's rent isn't my problem. I don't have to worry about whether he's going to call, or how much he's going to need, or what crisis he's going to have next month. That must feel liberating. It does. It also feels scary. Why scary? Because I don't know what kind of relationship we'll have if it's not based on him needing me to rescue him. Maybe you'll find out he actually loves you for who you are, not just for what you can provide. Maybe I'll find out that the only reason he stayed in touch was because I was useful to him. And if that's the case, then at least I'll know the truth. Jacob picked up the binder again and flipped through a few more pages. "Mom, can I ask you something else?" "Of course. Why didn't you ever ask Dad to help you set boundaries with us?" "Your father tried. He warned me that I was making it too easy for you kids to take advantage of me. But I thought he was being too harsh." "What did he say specifically?" "He said that love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. He said I was teaching you kids that you didn't have to respect me because I'd love you no matter how you treated me." He was right. He was. And I wish I'd listened to him while he was still alive to see me finally learn the lesson. Think he'd be proud of you now?" "You think so?" "I know so. Dad always wanted you to stand up for yourself more. He'd be proud that you're finally doing it." We spent the rest of the morning going through the binder together, and Jacob helped me organize the documents even more clearly. By the time we were finished, I had a comprehensive record of exactly how much I'd given each of my children and when. More importantly, I had a clear picture of the pattern I'd been enabling for years. "Mom," Jacob said, as he was getting ready to leave, "I want you to know that I support what you're doing, 100%, even if it's hard on your siblings. Especially because it's hard on them. They need to learn these lessons, and they're never going to learn them as long as you keep rescuing them. What if they cut me out of their lives completely? Then you'll know where you really stood with them all along. And if they don't, then maybe you'll finally get to have real relationships with them." After Jacob left, I sat in my office looking at the binder and feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. The satisfaction of having clear documentation of reality instead of living in denial. For too long, I'd told myself that I was helping my children when I was actually hurting them. I'd told myself that their problems were temporary when they were actually chronic. I'd told myself that their disrespect was just thoughtlessness, when it was actually entitlement. But now I had proof. Now I had numbers and dates and patterns that couldn't be explained away or minimized. And most importantly, now I had the clarity to move forward without second-guessing myself. Madison and Peter could choose to have real relationships with me, or they could choose to lose access to my resources. But they couldn't have both anymore. Sunday afternoon, I sent a text to all 3 of my children. *family meeting at my house. Today at 4 p.m., please be here. Madison responded immediately. *Can we do this another time? I have plans. Peter, what's this about? Jacob, I'll be there. I replied to the group. This can't wait. If you're not here, you'll miss important information about our family going forward. At 4 o'clock, Jacob was sitting at my kitchen table. Madison arrived 10 minutes late, clearly annoyed. Peter showed up 15 minutes after that, looking anxious. What's this about, Mom? Madison asked, not bothering to sit down. I really do have plans. Sit down, please, all of you. Something in my tone must have convinced them I was serious because they all sat. I placed 3 manila envelopes on the table, each labeled with one of their names. Over the past week, I've been doing some thinking about our family relationships, about what's working and what isn't, about what needs to change. Mom, Peter started, if this is about the rent thing, this is about much more than rent. Peter, I opened Jacob's envelope first and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Jacob, over the past 5 years, I've given you approximately $3,000 in financial support, all of which you've paid back within 2 months of borrowing it. Jacob nodded. That sounds right. You call me every Sunday just to talk. You remember my birthday? You ask about my life and actually listen to the answers. You treat me with respect and kindness. Okay. Which is why your envelope contains a copy of my updated will, showing that you're now set to inherit 50% of my estate. Madison and Peter both straightened in their chairs. I opened Madison's envelope next. Madison, over the past 5 years, I've given you $43,712 in financial support, none of which you've ever paid back or even acknowledged as a significant amount. Mom, I didn't ask you to keep track. I'm not finished. You call me when you need something. You rarely ask about my life unless it's to make sure I'm stable enough to help you with yours. You excluded me from your wedding and then lied about it. That's not fair, which is why your envelope contains a letter explaining that you've been removed as a beneficiary from my will and that I'm no longer willing to provide financial support of any kind. Madison's face went white. You can't be serious. I opened Peter's envelope. Peter, over the past 5 years, I've given you $57,000 in financial support. You've never paid back a single dollar or even made a serious attempt to do so. Mom, you know I've been struggling. You call me when you need money. You get angry when I can't or won't provide it. You've never once called just to see how I'm doing. That's not true, which is why your envelope contains the same letter as Madison's. You've been removed as a beneficiary and I will no longer provide financial support. Peter stood up. This is insane. You're punishing us for accepting help that you offered. I'm not punishing you. I'm setting boundaries. By cutting us out of your will, by making it clear that my love and my money are two different things. Madison was staring at her letter. Mom, you can't do this. We're your children. Yes, you are, and I love you both. But love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean enabling irresponsible behavior. And it certainly doesn't mean allowing myself to be treated like a bank account instead of a person. We don't treat you like a bank account, Peter said. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Peter, I don't know. Recently, it was 14 months ago. I have phone records. That can't be right. Every other call you've made to me in the past year has been to ask for money or help with some crisis. Maybe I don't call just to chat, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you. How would I know that you care about me? What evidence do I have of your affection that isn't tied to what I can provide for you? Peter couldn't answer. Madison, same question. How would I know that you love me if I couldn't see your bank account? That's not a fair question. It's the most fair question I can ask. If you love me, show me how. If you care about me, demonstrate it in ways that don't involve my wallet. We shouldn't have to prove that we love you, Madison said. You're right. In a healthy relationship, love is demonstrated naturally through respect, consideration, and genuine interest in each other's well-being. But that's not what we have. What do we have? Jacob asked quietly. We have relationships based on financial dependency and emotional manipulation. Madison and Peter take what they need from me and give back as little as possible. They've trained me to accept less and less respect in exchange for more and more support. That's not what we did, Madison protested. It's exactly what you did. And I let you do it because I thought that's what good mothers do. What do good mothers do? Peter asked. Good mothers love their children unconditionally, but they also teach their children to be responsible, respectful adults. I failed at the second part. So you're giving up on us? Madison's voice was getting higher, more emotional. I'm not giving up on you. I'm giving up on the dysfunction that's been masquerading as love in this family. What does that mean? Practically, Jacob asked. It means no more financial support for Madison and Peter. No more co-signing leases or loans. No more emergency bailouts. No more treating their crises as my responsibilities. What if we really need help? Peter asked. Then you'll figure out how to help yourselves, or you'll ask someone else. There is no one else. Mom, you're our family. I am your family, but being family doesn't mean I'm obligated to solve all your problems for you. Madison was crying now. I can't believe you're doing this to us. I'm not doing anything to you, Madison. I'm doing something for myself. What's that? I'm reclaiming my self-respect by hurting us, by stopping the pattern that's been hurting all of us for years. How has it been hurting us? Peter demanded. It's turned you into adults who can't manage your own lives. It's made you dependent on me instead of independent. It's prevented you from learning the skills you need to be successful on your own. We are successful, are you? Madison, you're 34 years old and you can't qualify for an apartment without a cosigner. Peter, you're 31 and you can't pay your own rent. That's not success, that's extended adolescence. The economy is hard. The economy is hard for everyone, Madison, but most people your age manage to support themselves without their mothers paying their bills. Most people don't have student loans and credit card debt and all the expenses we have. Most people budget for their expenses and live within their means. We sat in silence for a moment. Madison was still crying. Peter was staring at the table, and Jacob was watching everything with a sad expression. What happens now? Jacob asked. Now you all decide what kind of relationships you want to have with me going forward? What do you mean? Madison asked. I mean, you can choose to have real relationships with me based on mutual respect and genuine affection, or you can choose to walk away because I'm no longer useful to you. That's not a real choice, Peter said. It's the only choice that matters. Do you want me in your lives as a person, or do you only want me as a resource? We want you as our mother, Madison said. Then start treating me like one. Start calling me because you miss me. not because you need something. Start asking about my life because you care, not because you're making conversation before asking for help. Start treating me with the respect you'd show any other adult whose feelings matter to you. And if we do that, you'll change your mind about the will?" Peter asked. I looked at him, this son who was still trying to figure out how to manipulate the situation to his advantage. "Peter, if your first thought is about getting back into my will, then you're proving my point about what you really value in our relationship." "I didn't mean it like that." "You meant it exactly like that. You're not asking how to repair our relationship. You're asking how to restore your access to my money." "That's not true." "Then prove it. Spend the next year calling me just to talk. Spend the next year asking about my day and actually listening to the answer. Spend the next year treating me like someone whose feelings matter to you, and then you'll change your mind." "Peter, if you can do those things for a year, if you can treat me with genuine love and respect for 12 months, then we'll have a relationship worth preserving in my will. But if you can't, then we'll know where we really stand." Madison wiped her eyes. "What about me? Do I get the same chance?" "You get the same opportunity everyone gets, to decide whether you want a real relationship with me or no relationship at all." "I want a real relationship." "Then stop lying to me. Stop manipulating me. Stop treating me like I exist to serve you. Start treating me like someone you actually love." "I do love you." "Then show me in ways that don't cost me money or require me to ignore my own needs." After they left Madison in tears, Peter, angry, Jacob, thoughtfully, sat in my kitchen feeling something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. For the first time in longer than I could remember. I didn't have to worry about Madison's rent or Peter's crisis or anyone's emergency but my own. I didn't have to manage their emotions or solve their problems or accept their disrespect in the name of keeping the family together. I had told the truth about what our relationships had become, and I had offered them a path toward something better. What they did with that offer was up to them. 3 weeks later, I was in my garden when my neighbor Carol came over with a cup of coffee and a concerned expression. "Eleanor, honey, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is everything okay with Madison?" I looked up from the tomato plants I was staking. "What do you mean?" "Well, she was here yesterday and she seemed upset. She was asking if I'd noticed any changes in your behavior lately." "What kind of changes?" She wanted to know. "If you seemed depressed or confused or..." I think she used the word erratic. I sat back on my heels, processing this. "What did you tell her?" "I told her you seemed happier than I'd seen you in years, more energetic, more engaged. I mentioned that you'd joined the book club and started volunteering at the library again." "How did she react to that?" "She seemed surprised. She said she was worried because you'd been making some unusual financial decisions lately." I stood up and brushed the dirt off my hands. "Carol, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "In all the years you've known me, have I ever seemed financially irresponsible or mentally unstable?" "Good heavens, no. You're one of the most level-headed people I know. You managed your household finances for 30 years, put 3 kids through college, and still managed to save for retirement." "Why would you ask that?" "Because Madison is apparently telling people that I'm having some kind of breakdown." Carol's expression hardened. "That girl has some nerve." "What do you mean, Eleanor? I've watched you support those children for years. I've seen you cancel your own plans to help them. Seen you go without things so you could pay their bills. And now that you're finally putting yourself first, she's trying to make it seem like you're losing your mind. That does seem to be what's happening." "Well, it's nonsense. You're sharper now than you've been since Mark died. You're more social, more active, more like your old self." That evening, Diane called with similar news. "Eleanor, I had the strangest conversation with Madison today. Let me guess. She's worried about my mental health." "How did you know?" "She's been making the rounds, apparently." "What did she say to you?" "She said you'd been acting strangely since the wedding, that you'd made some impulsive decisions about money, and she was worried you might be developing dementia." "Dementia?" She asked if I'd noticed any memory problems or confusion. She suggested that maybe you should see a doctor for a cognitive evaluation. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "My memory is fine, Diane. In fact, it's better than it's been in years. I can remember exactly how much money I've given each of my children and exactly how often they've thanked me for it." I told her that. I said you seemed clearer and more focused than you'd been in a long time. How did she take that? She didn't like it. She said I was too close to the situation to see the changes objectively. Meaning she wants people to believe you're incompetent so she can dismiss your decision to stop enabling her. That's what I figured. "Eleanor, I need to tell you something else." "What?" She asked me if I thought you might need a guardian. Someone to help you make financial decisions. The audacity of it took my breath away. She wants to have me declared incompetent. I think she's testing the waters, seeing if anyone would support the idea. "And what did you tell her?" I told her that if anyone tried to have you declared incompetent, I'd testify against them. I'd tell any court in the land that you're the sanest person in this family. Thank you, Eleanor. You need to be careful. If she's really going down this road, she won't get far. I have documentation of everything. Bank records, phone logs, medical records, showing I'm in perfect health. Any doctor who evaluates me will confirm that I'm mentally competent. I hope you're right. I am right. But Diane, the fact that she's even considering this tells me everything I need to know about who Madison really is. The next day, I got a call from my doctor's office. Mrs. Martinez, this is Sarah from Dr. Peterson's office. Your daughter Madison called and asked us to schedule you for a cognitive evaluation. She's concerned about some memory issues. Sarah, I don't have any memory issues. I haven't requested a cognitive evaluation. Oh, well, she seemed quite concerned. She said you'd been making unusual financial decisions and she was worried about early-stage dementia. Sarah, I'm 64 years old and in perfect health. I volunteer at the library. I balance my own checkbook and I just joined 2 new community organizations. Does that sound like someone with dementia? No, it doesn't. But she was very insistent. Let me make this clear. I do not consent to a cognitive evaluation. I have not requested one and I don't need one. If my daughter calls again, please tell her that my medical decisions are private and that she has no authority to make appointments for me. Of course, Mrs. Martinez. I'm sorry for the confusion. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. Madison wasn't just trying to manipulate me anymore. She was trying to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could regain control of my finances. My phone rang. Jacob, Mom, I just had a really disturbing conversation with Madison about my supposed mental decline. You know about that? She's been busy. What did she tell you? She said she was worried about you, that you'd been acting erratically since Dad died. She asked if I'd noticed any signs of confusion or memory loss. And what did you tell her? I told her she was full of shit, Jacob. No, Mom, I'm serious. I told her that you're sharper now than you've been in years and that the only thing that's changed is that you've stopped letting her and Peter take advantage of you. How did she react to that? She got defensive. She said I was too young to understand the complexities of the situation. The complexities? That's what she said. Then she suggested that maybe you needed professional help to work through your grief about Dad. I worked through my grief about Dad 2 years ago with an actual therapist who declared me emotionally healthy and ready to move forward with my life. I know that, but Madison doesn't want to hear it because it doesn't support her narrative. Exactly. Mom, I think she's planning something. Like what? I think she might try to have you declared incompetent. She asked me a bunch of questions about your finances, about whether you'd been making any unusual purchases or investments. Have I? You bought a filing cabinet and joined a book club. If that's evidence of mental decline, then half the population needs guardians. Jacob, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay, do you think there's any chance that Madison could convince a court that I'm mentally incompetent? Based on what evidence? You're clearly thinking more rationally than you have in years, but she's telling people I'm confused and making impulsive decisions. Mom, you have documentation of everything. You have medical records showing you're healthy. You have evidence that your financial decisions are based on years of careful analysis. No competent doctor or judge would declare you incompetent. Based on Madison's complaints, I hope you're right. I am right. But Mom, the fact that she's even trying this tells you everything you need to know about her priorities, which are getting access to your money no matter what it takes, even if it means having you declared mentally incompetent. That night, I called my attorney. Henry, I need to ask you about something. If one of my children tried to have me declared incompetent, what would that process look like? Eleanor, is there something I should know about? Madison has been telling people I'm showing signs of dementia. She's asked my doctor to schedule a cognitive evaluation without my consent. She can't do that. Medical decisions are private, unless you've given someone power of attorney, which I haven't. Good, Eleanor, for someone to be declared incompetent. There has to be clear evidence of cognitive decline that affects their ability to make rational decisions. From what I've observed, you're thinking more clearly than ever. That's what I thought. Has Madison filed any paperwork? Made any formal requests? Not that I know of, but she's been asking family members and neighbors if they've noticed changes in my behavior. She's building a case, or trying to. But Eleanor, based on our recent meetings and the clarity of your decision-making process, I don't think she'd get very far. What should I do? Document everything. Keep records of her attempts to undermine your competence, and consider whether you want to add a clause to your will specifically stating that you were of sound mind when you made your decisions. That's a good idea. Eleanor, I have to ask. Are you surprised that Madison would go this far? I thought about that question. Was I surprised that my daughter would try to have me declared mentally incompetent to regain access to my money? No, I said finally. I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed, but not surprised. That tells you something, doesn't it? It tells me I made the right decision when I removed her from my will. After I hung up, I sat in my living room thinking about the woman Madison had become. Or maybe the woman she'd always been, and I'd just refused to see it. She wasn't just entitled or selfish. She was willing to destroy my reputation and have me declared mentally incompetent to get what she wanted. That wasn't love. That wasn't even basic human decency. That was something much darker and much sadder. But it was also clarifying, because now I knew exactly who I was dealing with and exactly how far she was willing to go. And that knowledge, painful as it was, would make all my future decisions much easier. 6 months later, I received an invitation in the mail. Madison was hosting a family barbecue for the 4th of July. The invitation was formal, printed on expensive cardstock. You're cordially invited to celebrate Independence Day with the Morrison family. Madison had taken David's name, apparently. At the bottom, in smaller print, please RSVP by June 25th. I stared at the invitation for a long time, thinking about the irony of Madison inviting me to celebrate independence. Then I called Jacob. Did you get an invitation to Madison's barbecue? Yeah, are you going? I don't think so, but I'm curious, did she call you about it or just send the invitation? Just the invitation. Which is weird, right? She usually calls to make sure I'm coming to family things. She usually calls to make sure everyone's coming. The fact that she didn't call suggests she doesn't actually want me there. Then why invite you? Because not inviting me would look bad. This way, when I don't show up, she can tell people. She tried to include me, but I chose not to come. Just like the wedding, exactly like the wedding, I set the invitation on my kitchen counter and went back to reading the book my book club was discussing that week. But the invitation nagged at me, sitting there like an accusation. That evening, Madison called. Hi, Mom, did you get my invitation? I did great. So you'll be there. I haven't decided yet. What do you mean you haven't decided? It's a family barbecue. Madison, the last family event you invited me to, I ended up watching on a live stream from my living room. That was different. This is just a casual barbecue in our backyard, is it? Or is it another opportunity for you to exclude me while making it look like my choice? Mom, you're being paranoid. Am I? Because 6 months ago you were telling people I was showing signs of dementia? You tried to have my doctor schedule a cognitive evaluation without my consent. I was worried about you. You were worried about losing access to my money? That's not true. Madison, we both know why you're calling. You want to make sure I show up to your barbecue so you can point to it later as evidence that you're trying to maintain a relationship with me. I do want to maintain a relationship with you. No, you want to maintain the appearance of a relationship. There's a difference. What's the difference? A real relationship would involve you calling me sometimes just to talk. It would involve you asking about my life and actually listening to the answers. It would involve you treating me with respect, even when you don't need anything from me. I do respect you. When was the last time you called me? Madison. I'm calling you now to ask about the barbecue invitation. Before that, when was the last time you called? She was quiet. It was 3 months ago when you needed a reference for your new apartment application. Before that, it was 5 months ago when you wanted me to co-sign a loan for David's car. I've been busy. We're all busy, Madison, but we make time for the people who matter to us. You matter to me, do I? Because I have no evidence of that beyond your occasional need for financial support. I invited you to the barbecue. You sent me a formal invitation like I'm an acquaintance instead of your mother. When was the last time you invited me to something by actually calling and asking if I'd like to come? I don't know. I do. It was 4 years ago for your birthday dinner. And even then, you called 2 hours before to ask if I could bring dessert because you'd forgotten to order a cake. Mom, I don't understand what you want from me. I want you to decide whether you want a mother or just someone to blame for your problems. What does that mean? It means if you want me in your life, you need to start treating me like someone you actually want to spend time with, not someone you tolerate because you might need something from them later. I do want to spend time with you. Then, prove it. Call me sometime when you don't need anything. Ask me about my day. Remember my birthday without a reminder? Treat me like someone whose feelings matter to you. And if I do that, you'll come to the barbecue. I looked at the invitation again, at the formal language and expensive cardstock that made me feel like a stranger being invited to someone else's life. Madison, if you do that consistently for 6 months, if you call me just to talk, if you ask about my life, if you treat me with genuine respect, then we can talk about attending your events. 6 months. It took you 34 years to learn to take me for granted. I think 6 months to learn to value me is reasonable. What if I can't do it? Then you'll have your answer about what I really mean to you. And what about the barbecue? I'll be busy that day. Doing what? I looked at my calendar where I'd written book club beach trip in red ink. I'm going to the beach with my book club. We're reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and discussing it over lunch at a seaside restaurant. You're choosing a book club over family. I'm choosing people who actually enjoy my company over people who tolerate my presence. That's not fair. It's completely fair. My book club friends call me because they want to talk to me. They ask about my life because they care about the answer. They remember my birthday and bring me flowers just because they saw some that reminded them of me. We're your family. Biology doesn't obligate me to accept disrespect, Madison. Being your mother doesn't mean I have to settle for being treated like an inconvenience. After I hung up, I wrote "declined" across Madison's invitation and put it in my filing cabinet with all the other documentation of our relationship. Then I called my book club friend Sarah to confirm our beach trip plans. Eleanor, I was just thinking about you. Did you finish the book? I did. What a story. I can't wait to discuss it. I know. The themes about reinventing yourself and choosing your own family really resonated with me. Me too, I said, looking at Madison's declined invitation. Sometimes the family you choose is more loving than the family you're born into. Exactly. Oh, and Eleanor, I picked up some of those lavender cookies you like from the bakery downtown. I thought we could have them with our coffee after lunch. You remembered I liked those. Of course I remembered. You mentioned them last month. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about the difference between Sarah remembering my cookie preference and Madison forgetting my birthday. Between book club friends who brought me flowers and children who only called when they needed something. Between people who valued my presence and people who tolerated it. I was 64 years old, and I was finally learning that I deserved better than tolerance from the people in my life. I deserved to be celebrated, not endured. I deserved to be chosen, not just claimed by biology. And if my own children couldn't see that, then I'd build my life around people who could. 3 days later, Jacob called. Mom, Madison's really upset. That you're not coming to the barbecue? I'm sure she is. She says you're being unreasonable. What do you think? I think you're being honest about what you need from a relationship. And I think it's about time. Jacob, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you coming to the barbecue? I was planning to. Why? Because I want you to pay attention to how Madison talks about me when I'm not there. What do you mean? I mean, I want you to listen to what she says about my absence. Does she express concern for my well-being? Does she seem sad that I'm not there? Or does she complain about how difficult I'm being? I'll pay attention. And Jacob, I want you to think about whether the way she talks about me is the way someone talks about a person they love and miss, or the way someone talks about a person who's inconveniencing them. The day after the barbecue, Jacob called me. Mom, we need to talk. How was the barbecue eye-opening? In what way? In the way that Madison spent most of the afternoon complaining about you to anyone who would listen? What did she say? She said, you were being dramatic and manipulative. She said you were punishing the whole family because you didn't get your way about the wedding. Anything else? She said you were going through some kind of late-life crisis, and that everyone should just ignore your behavior until you came to your senses. I see, Mom. She didn't seem sad that you weren't there. She seemed relieved. That tells you something, doesn't it? It tells me that you were right about everything. She doesn't miss you when you're not around. She just resents that. You're not available when she needs something. How do you feel about that? Honestly, it makes me ashamed to be related to her. Jacob, you don't have to choose sides. I already chose sides, Mom. I chose the side of treating people with basic human decency. What does that mean for your relationship with Madison and Peter? It means I'm not going to pretend their behavior is acceptable anymore. It means I'm going to start calling them out when they disrespect you. You don't have to do that. For me, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine and thought about the path that had brought me here. 6 months ago, I'd been watching my daughter's wedding on a broken live stream, feeling invisible and worthless. Now I had a calendar full of activities with people who genuinely enjoyed my company. I had book club meetings and volunteer shifts at the library and coffee dates with neighbors who called just to chat. I had a son who respected me enough to defend me when I wasn't there, and I had the self-respect that comes from refusing to accept less than I deserved. Madison could keep sending formal invitations and making token gestures toward maintaining our relationship. But until she was willing to treat me like someone worth loving instead of someone worth using, those invitations would keep getting declined because I wasn't on anyone's guest list anymore. I was writing my own invitations, and the people who truly wanted to be in my life were already RSVP'd.